the 10-12, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. We're part of the 10-12 Network. You can find every show on the network at 1012network.com. And of course, we are partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip Slavin. Thank you for joining us today. I would say what day this is, but I don't know what day I will drop this particular episode. I know it will be sometime in June. So whenever you're hearing this, it's today, hooray. Don't worry, it's not just me making dumb references to children's movies from the early 2000s. Joining me today to talk about a thing that is near and dear to his heart is our good friend, Chase A. Kiddy of BetMGM. We're talking win totals, we're talking Big 12 championship odds, and of course we're going to talk about the team that is nearest and dearest to his heart, West Virginia. Chase, welcome back, man.
It is nice to be back. It's nice to talk a little football in the off season and not have a couple of hours away from changing diapers and writing blog posts and whatever else I'm into these days. So it's good to be back with you, Phillip.
Yeah, since this is the first time we've chatted here on the pod since the twins were born. So congrats. Hope things are going well. I assume they both have at least a drawer full of WVU baby gear, onesies, and nappies. And do they make stuffed like Mountaineer mascots for kids? Surely.
I feel like a bad fan for not knowing the answer to that. I'm sure they exist somewhere. I don't think we've gotten. I think maybe they were given a JMU shirt at some place because me and the wife both are JMU alums. So right. I think somebody did that, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to find out.
Yeah, that's a quick Amazon search that I can find very weird specific toys very easily. So
maybe even an Etsy search that might be.
Yeah. All right, if you're a West Virginia fan listening, you're like, oh yeah, I got one right here. 1012podcast@gmail.com. Let us know. Shoot us the link. You can DM us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Looking for musket-related children's toys.
Yes. Yeah. Coonskin hat, dead animal fur, musket, pop gun musket, I think would be fine.
Raise them right.
Yeah. Getting started early. Right. This is true indoctrination of West Virginia fandom. Let's start with West Virginia since we've gone down that rabbit hole. Mountaineers have a new head coach on the football team. I say new for the last few years, but not completely and totally new. He is Rich Rodriguez, former West Virginia coach, former Arizona head coach, former Michigan head coach, former Jacksonville State head coach, back in Morgantown to run the football program. I mean, Chase, we haven't had a chance to really chat about this since that hire was announced. I've got to get your thoughts on this, man.
Yeah, I mean, he was hired, I want to say November 30th. And then a week later, my kids were born. And, the interim week was like, we were not planning for the kids to be born on December 7th. We went in for a doctor's appointment on December 3rd. And they were like, hey, we can't see some oxygen go into a cord on one of the two kids. So guess what? Your kids are about to be born. So, and everything turned out fine. I don't want to scare anybody. But my point is, I was sitting in the hospital, vibrating. I'm very happy my kids were born, but also I have to talk about the Rich Rod stuff, and I never got to. So it's just been exploding out of my body for the last 6 months, and I haven't had anywhere to put that energy. So let me say this. My gut reaction was, I cannot believe they just did that. I cannot believe this is the hire. And from a logical standpoint, if you go back to December and you looked at who was available and what is reasonable to expect a mid-table Big 12 team to get in the hiring process, it felt like, especially it was a gap. It was a long amount of time. Neil Brown got canned kind of early, so you knew there was going to be a hire. And yet every day that went on, every day it went longer, was another day where it was I don't know what their move is here. I don't know what they're going for, what they're trying to accomplish. There were some other, I don't remember, it was 6 months ago, but I know there were like names that were being cycled back and forth and in and out. And every day it went on and another name got taken off the board. You're like, is it really going to be Rich? Are they really going to go back to Rich? Are they going to hire? I mean, there were like 3 different crazy aspects to it. One was just like, Rich Rod, seriously? Another was, are we really going to hire the Jacksonville State coach? Like, who is Rich Rod? Who happens to be the old guy? It's just, it was crazy that it happened that way. And I thought, to me personally, there was an even more shocking element to it, which became how fast people were ready to buy back into Rich Rod. Like everything was totally fine all over again. It happened so fast that, like, I don't know how much stock you wanted to put into random Facebook comments on West Virginia University official posts or whatever, but like the number of posts I saw that were like, I believe we can win a national championship in Morgantown in football. I was like, are you insane? Like, okay. What are you talking about? Like, it really blew my mind that not just that it happened, not just how it happened, but the response, which was so positive, so fast. And I thought Rich Rod took too much shit after 2007. I mean, all of this, like, run him out of the state. He blew the game on purpose because he wanted to go to Michigan. I thought there was too much animosity after that. And now it just felt like we have overcorrected. Like, the sky's the limit once again, and we're going to go right back to the mid-2000s with this speed option run game. I mean, Rich Rod, and this is where I want to kind of hone in on the facts and the reality of things. Rich Rod has not had an awesome last 20 years. Michigan did not go well. Arizona did not go well. He was like a G5 OC in there for a little while. That didn't go well. And then he had like 1.5 good years at Jacksonville State in a really bad Conference USA. And all of a sudden it feels like his stock is suddenly like, oh yeah, that's the guy that had a great run for several years at West Virginia in the 2000s. It just feels like, schematically to me, it's I'm sure there are some things in there that are new, but this is stale, man. This is like if you go back to what Chip Kelly was doing at Oregon, that was cutting edge at one point. It's not cutting edge in 2025. Yeah. And that's exactly how I feel about Rich Rod too. So, I mean, we had to hire somebody, and that's the part of it that I accept. But it feels to me like such a getting back with your toxic ex situation. That was one of the first things I arrived at, of like, you had an early first marriage, you were divorced by 25, you said some bad things, they said some bad things, 20 years go by, you're single, you're lonely, you thought you would have done better than this, you've gained 65 pounds, and all of a sudden that ex from your early 20s, looking, there are worse options available. So maybe we should give this another run. That's what it felt like to me. And Phillip, this is where I'm going to draw on some supporting evidence here. Don't just take my word for that, okay? Because this is absolutely real. I asked ChatGPT what it thinks of West Virginia signing Rich Rodriguez to be their new head football coach. I'm going to read to you verbatim what ChatGPT wrote me. Oh, West Virginia, you really got back with your toxic ex, huh? Hiring Rich Rodriguez again is like re-downloading Tinder just to go on a date with the person who ghosted you mid-championship run. This is the football equivalent of texting your ex you up after a decade of therapy and pretending you've moved on. It goes on. Some notable quotes here. This isn't a reunion, it's Stockholm Syndrome in shoulder pads. Y'all really went from he ruined us to he's changed, I swear, like this is some Appalachian soap opera. Can't wait for the inevitable we're on a break moment in 2027. this isn't a coaching hire. It's a cautionary tale, but hey, maybe the third time's the charm. If you count the emotional damage as a recruiting tool. I thought they were reaching a little bit for that one. I'm not sure where third time's the charm comes in, but hey, we're still working out some of the kinks.
The more info you feed it, the more accurate it is.
We're working through some things here on the tech front. When Sam Altman is on speed dial. I liked this one a lot. Rich Rod left Morgantown chasing national titles. Instead, he racked up buyouts like Infinity Stones and now teaches the triple option at community colleges disguised as FCS programs. It's a pretty sick burn for a computer. That's pretty good.
Now I want to riff off between like an actual comedian and just a computer, like a laptop on a stool with a microphone, reading off AI created jokes at people.
Only at West Virginia do you get betrayed, humiliated, publicly dumped, and then offer the guy a raise 17 years later.
Yeah, this is getting clipped.
If you listen closely, you can still hear Owen Schmidt screaming from 2007, but now it's just him yelling all caps, "Why are you doing this again?" So, I don't know. I don't know what else to add to that.
No, that's look in the weirdness that was the 2024-2025 coaching cycle. Somehow the Big 12 ended up with 2 rehires, and West Virginia made the better one, I think, than UCF. Like I'll give them that win. Rich Rod hasn't had a season where he's won double-digit games since he left West Virginia. He's had one season where he won double-digit games. Year 3 at Arizona, went 10-4, and then the rest of the way. I mean, he won 9 games 3 years in a row at Jacksonville State. The first one of those, of course, they were still an FCS school. And then, Conference USA, take from it what you will.
I think I'm taking the Scott Frost hire. I think I'm going to disagree with you. I think it's close, but I think what puts Frost ahead for me is it was much more recent. And so it makes me think you can get back to that. You haven't been schematically passed over. I think a lot of the things that we overlook when coaches move around and they were successful in one place and they weren't in another is the recruiting stuff, is the inroads and the connections and the networking that you have at one school in one specific geographic region, like maybe Scott Frost has in Florida. But then you go to Nebraska, it's a totally different environment. Your recruiting base is totally different. I think sometimes we don't give enough significance to changes like that. So I think maybe Scott Frost, only a few years removed in the grand scheme of things back at UCF, maybe that works out versus 20 years on later in Morgantown. And, Big 12 fans might not know this if you're not inherently a West Virginia fan, but if you didn't pay close attention to the Big East 25 years ago, West Virginia ran that conference. Every year it was like, hey, who do you like, West Virginia or the field? That was kind of how the conference was handicapped. So it's not the same world that we all live in right now. It's very different. And then you add in the stuff about the scheme aging, and it feels to me like there is a hard cap on what the ceiling is here. But I get that the university, at a certain point, you had to make a move, and the options were limited.
I like this one better than the Scott Frost hire, in large part because I think, I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, UCF had better options than West Virginia and more potential, and they chose the guy who's an an analyst in the NFL, who's not even a head coach in college, not even in college football anymore, because, I can at least show Rich Rod's having success coaching college football. Like, we can nitpick the quality of Jacksonville State and their opponents. At least he's winning football games as a head coach at a university.
Sure.
Nobody was like, you know who we need to hire? Scott Frost.
Yeah,
that guy's going to get a head job. That guy, he wasn't even up for coordinator positions. I look forward to Oregon rehiring Chip Kelly to take over as head coach again in 2032. Sounds about right, 2032. Just bookmark that for now. So how do you view West Virginia as far as like this is like to me both of these hires are like I we'll see how long it lasts. Like very uninspiring. Talked about this with Shahan on our episode with him of like there's just been some really uninspiring hires in the Big 12 as of late that make you go safe hires always suck and they never work very well, and this feels like another safe hire. So how in your view can this be a successful hire, and what does that look like for Rich Rod in West Virginia?
Okay, let me take it from two directions. Let me talk about what I think West Virginia should try to build long term, and then how they should think about Rich Rod short term strategically. If you're hiring Rich Rod and you're thinking, we're going to rebuild the great West Virginia run of the late 90s into the 2000s, and Rich Rod's the guy to do that, I think that's batshit crazy. I truly do. I don't know how else to describe that. And if you're a fan, like, God love you. I love my West Virginia people. I love the eternal optimism that we have around here. I think there is no chance that happens. I mean, we are never even getting close to what 2007 was, right? That's just not going to happen again. It's not realistic. I think if you're thinking about Rich Rod as a bridge, as we can hold water while we figure out who the next guy is, and we're going to pull the rug out from it in 2 years because we've got our guy and we want to get him in here. I think that's kind of a reasonable way to go about this. Maybe a little bit on the shitty end from the interpersonal perspective, but, you know, like, I don't think anybody's going to cry too hard about Rich Rod having the rug pulled out from under him based on the history around here. So there's that element of it. Long term is where I'm more interested. And this is, I'm like 80% done with this piece. It's a piece I'm working on this summer. It's sort of like a thought exercise about who West Virginia should model themselves after. And I've really honed in on what I think is going to seem like maybe a crazy comparison, but I think it's really, really apt if you give me a couple minutes to lay it out. I think West Virginia should build itself like North Dakota State. I think this is the absolute model of what West Virginia should try to do. Okay, North Dakota State has won 10 FCS national championships since 2011. Do they have the best facilities? No. Do they have the most resources? I'm talking at their level. I'm not talking in all of Division One. Just at the FCS level. Do they have the best facilities? No. Most resources? No. Do they play in the best conference? Now, yeah, I would probably say the Missouri Valley is the best FCS conference, but when this all started in 2011, definitely not. It was the CAA. And Valley was second best at best, okay? Do they have the best recruiting? No. Not only are they not a top team for recruits, they are in North Dakota. You want to take a guess at how many 3-star recruits come out of North Dakota every year? It is not many. So if they don't have those things, how are they good? They must have some kind of awesome staffing continuity, right? Not really. Craig Bohl was there. He built up the modern Division I program as they transitioned from D2 to FCS, but then he left for Wyoming. Chris Kleiman came in. He won as the top guy. Then he left for Kansas State. Matt Ince came in. He wins a couple national championships. I personally think Ince is a little overrated, but he still won 2, and that's 2 more than West Virginia has. Tim Polasek came in after that. He just won a national championship a couple months ago. They just continue to win. It doesn't matter who the guy is that's in charge. They run on scheme. They run on culture. They run on geography. The scheme is old school power. They run full ball control, heavy personnel, fullbacks. It's super physical, and everybody knows it at that level. It makes them really tough to prepare for in modern college football. It's a little bit like how people talk about playing Army in the middle of the season. You're doing all this stuff one way, and then you've got to totally switch your prep for a week because you're going to go play somebody that does it completely differently. That's like how North Dakota State does it. I'm not schematically, I'm not saying they're Army, but it's different. It's contrarian. It also allows them to cover a lot of the in-state recruiting deficit that they have to deal with because they're in North Dakota. And geography, obviously championships are won in cold weather football. It gets very cold in North Dakota, even inside of the dome. It's a big advantage during playoff season when they host teams from farther in the south. They can use that to their advantage. That goes doubly so because of the physicality they play with. It's like extra effective in cold weather. I think all this stuff is comparable to West Virginia. I mean, down to the last detail. You're talking about a state with fewer than 2 million people, not a lot of high-profile recruits. That's something that West Virginia deals with constantly. You have to recruit from Pennsylvania and Ohio and here in Virginia. You have more high-profile recruits in West Virginia than North Dakota, but not by much. It's still a smaller state. West Virginia is colder than a lot of other places in the Big 12. Last conference game I went to a couple years ago against Oklahoma, it was 20 degrees and snowing at kickoff. When you host a big game against Texas Tech or Arizona late in the season, that weather is a potential advantage the same way it can be in Fargo. I don't love the Rich Rod retread, as I've made pretty clear, but I do think one thing about it that can work is that he plays a style of football that still wants to emphasize the run game. I think that's where these two things meet up. Even under Rich Rod, even if you're thinking about the next coach building for the future, you can start to put into place a little bit of a contrarian infrastructure that emphasizes power football. This is one thing Neil, I thought, was good at. It was building this culture of NFL caliber offensive linemen, and he had the results to show for it. Maybe not in the record books, but in terms of getting guys drafted in the trenches, he was not bad at that. That's a good place to start. Spend whatever NIL resources we have on defensive players. Start developing local West Virginia guys into fullbacks and wingbacks and all this crazy old school stuff. The cultural overlap that exists in this space on building a program on toughness and physicality and old school football should be so easy for a program that has a giant slab of coal on the ground in front of the stadium. This is such a natural fit. Both for the Rich Rod era and going forward, this is what I think they should do.
So what you're saying is after the Rich Rod 2.0 fails, either hire Tim Pulisic as the next head coach or Matt Enns if he's having success at Fresno State.
I definitely don't think they should do either of those things. But I do think, I don't know, maybe they should. Go find somebody that knows how to do this. I would not hire Enns. I think Enns is overrated.
It worked for Kansas State. Look how great Kleiman's been.
But Kleiman's a great coach. That's what I'm saying.
Right, I don't know enough about, Pulasic's been in North Dakota State for 1 year. He won the national championship.
I think one or two, but I don't know enough about him either. But stylistically, quibble about who the head coach should be, but stylistically, this is what I think they should do: is lean into the contrarian stuff. West Virginia should not try to do the same thing that everybody else does. If you try to play, Billy Bean quote here, full money ball. If we try to play like the Yankees in here, we will lose to the Yankees out there. That's absolutely true for West Virginia too. You have to be different. You have to be contrarian, and you need to lean into the problems that you have in order to compensate for them. And I think this goes a long way to fixing a lot of what has gone wrong. The same way that North Dakota State takes its natural drawbacks and turns them into strengths.
They should have just hired Jeff Monken.
I think that's more the direction that I'm going.
Again, they should have hired Jeff Monken. I don't understand why schools are just he's not going to come in and run the triple option. That's what he has to do at Army.
Right.
They should have hired Jeff Monken.
I would have loved that.
I would be very excited.
There was 27 hours where I thought that was realistic, where I thought it might happen, and then
it would have been a fantastic hire. Okay. I think that's enough on West Virginia for now.
I think so too. Yeah, that's too much for me. So God help the listeners.
Well, you've held a lot in. So do you feel like you're able to kind of get everything released?
I think my blood pressure is down 25 points. Yeah.
Okay. From Rich Rod stuff, there's still twins in the house, so
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue.
There was a dog barking at some point in there. I think I blacked out.
When I was little, I never thought I'd be in the big leagues because there was never a league like this.
The next legendary big league is here. Athletes Unlimited Softball League. Unlimited potential. Unlimited impact. This is legendary.
Okay. Let's move on to Big 12. I believe you want to start with the Big 12 championship market. I pulled up the numbers from BetMGM. For those watching this on YouTube, you can see the logo on Chase's hoodie. In case you want to know who he
thanks
works for.
Thanks for the health insurance.
Absolutely. BetMGM right now, Kansas State and Arizona State, at least last check, had the best odds in the Big 12 for championship at plus 550. Texas Tech at plus 600. Utah plus 700. BYU and Baylor at plus 800. Everyone else is plus 1,000 or higher. So just let's talk about this Big 12 championship market. What are just your thoughts overall on it?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is, what a weird market.
Right?
You laid out a couple of the numbers. Kansas State and Arizona State both 550, Texas Tech 6-1, Utah 7-1, Baylor 8-1, Kansas and TCU 12-1. Arizona is your absolute longest team here in the table, which is your de facto last place team at 66-1. So if you're not a natural odds person and you don't live the numbers every day, let me explain to you why this is weird. Let me give you a couple comparison points. Look at the Big Ten. Ohio State is your favorite, obviously national champion, plus 190. Penn State right behind them, plus 240. Oregon plus 350. Michigan's kind of in the mix at plus 650, but then it drops. Big drop all the way to USC, 20-1. Several teams at 40-1, including my ex-BFF Kurt Signetti. Northwestern and Purdue are your long shots at 500-1. So what you're seeing there is more of a hierarchy. You have three teams at the top that anyone who even casually watches college football could have told you pre-flop, we're going to be the three top teams in the Big Ten: Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon. All three made the playoffs last year. They are the obvious top preseason contenders. Then you move down in sort of a bell curve fashion. There's a fat middle. There's another skinny tail at the bottom. Let's look at the ACC. Clear favorite with Clemson, plus 120. Those are implied odds of 45% chance that Clemson wins the conference. Miami's plus 350. Two teams around 7-1 with Louisville and SMU. Georgia Tech, go Yellow Jackets, kind of random, 13-1. All the way at the bottom, you have Wake Forest and Stanford at plus 35,000. SEC is a little bit more flattened out because of the improved depth of the conference, but still, Texas is your favorite, plus 225. Georgia plus 375. Alabama 5-1. Ole Miss 850. LSU 10-1. A&M 14-1. Tennessee 16-1. South Carolina 18-1. Florida 20-1. Auburn, somewhat surprisingly, 22-1. And then you've got big separation. It's Oklahoma and Missouri all the way down to Mississippi State at 500-1. So those ranges, I swear there's a reason I'm laying all this out.
No, I get where you're going. I get where you're going.
The Big Ten, favorite plus 190, long shot, 500-1. ACC, plus 120, long shot, 350-1. SEC, short shots, plus 225, long shot, 500-1. What was the Big 12 again? Plus 550 to plus 6,600. That is a crazy range. And what this says to me is that the market has no clue. And you have to kind of lay out what all the other conferences to understand why this is totally different. Market has no idea what to do here. You can't make anyone too short because that makes the buy point too lame and nobody wants, that short of a return. If you're betting on Arizona State to win the conference again, you're going to want better than 2-1. That's just not worth it at that price. You can't make anybody too long because of the liability. Who won this conference last year? Arizona State. Everybody talked about how Arizona State was the worst team in the Big 12 last year.
Including
and
us.
then they won the conference, including us. Yeah, absolutely. I have a note in here, including Phillip and I. So you can't make anybody too short. You can't make anybody too long. It's impossible. It's such a weird conference.
Chaos.
And even with a team like Arizona State, bettors are going to be too slow, even mid-season. Going into November, you're still going to be too slow to buy into a team that's obviously contending. Again, I'm not going to speak for you. I'll speak for myself. We're doing picks every week. It was like the middle of November last year before I thought, I guess Arizona State really is good. It just seemed like I was waiting and waiting and waiting for the regression to hit. And it was like, no, Scatterbo and these guys are just good. This is just a good team. So it's such an odd market. And like, I haven't done all of my roster homework. I mean, the stuff with the TARP rankings and how many people move around, it's something like 1 out of every 3 college football programs at the FBS level has a new head coach this year. It's just, you cannot possibly feel good about a conference winner bet at the beginning of June. So I need to do a little more work before I can make a recommendation here. But looking at the table, it is crazy to see this range where nobody is really a dominant favorite, but also nobody is totally dead to win anything. I've never, I don't think, seen a conference championship table like this, let alone at the power conference level.
The things we had to start doing, and we have the conversation on the show all the time. We had it with Shahan in our interview of like, whatever your priors are for the Big 12, once the games kick off, throw them out. Throw them out.
I agree.
Throw them out for this conference, because whatever you think based off of strength of schedule heading into the season doesn't matter once the games start. Whatever you think based off of who has lost, like, you have no idea who's developing or not. It's because it's a conference of development. Like, you can hang on to priors in the Big Ten and the SEC and in many cases the ACC late into the season or all season long. In the Big 12, you can't. You cannot hang on to prior. Like, the only prior at this point that I have any confidence in is Kansas State's going to probably win at least 8 games. Outside of that, good luck. Good luck. And so somebody who we think is going to be good and picking the top 4 is probably going to finish in the bottom half of the conference. Somebody from the bottom of the half of the conference, or in this new 16-team conference, somebody preseason ranked somewhere between 5th and 11th is probably going to be in the conference championship game. Like, that is what the Big 12 is. And you can say, well, but this team specifically, and we can have conversations all day about why a team specifically based off of the roster and the recruitment and the development and this and that and stats and da-da-da-da should be a contender. It doesn't mean squat, because you don't know what the schedule is like. There's schedule inequality because there's 16 teams. You don't know who's going to be way better than you thought. You don't know who's going to be way worse than you thought. It's too hard in this conference, especially now with 16 teams. It was one thing with 10 teams. There was some sense of consistency. With 16 teams and the unbalanced schedules, it's just too hard to sit here and say, I know what's going to happen, because we don't. Like, you don't. No one. You can guess. You can make an educated guess, and you might be right. But who the hell knows? So when I look at these numbers, and I would never bet on. The last time I felt anything close to wanting to bet on conference championship odds during the middle of the summer was like Kansas State 2 years ago, and I wish I'd done it because I would have actually won money. Last year, no. This year, I will say this. Obviously, the numbers on Kansas State, Arizona State, not as tantalizing. And I'm not going to pick Arizona State because no one repeats. No one gets back there for 2 years in a row, let alone repeats as the title winner. I kind of like Baylor at plus 800. Like, I'm pretty high on Baylor heading into this season. I see a lot of potential for them. And at a plus 800, like, I like those odds. I think there's a good payoff if I was going to put money down on Baylor as a reasonable bet, to say they can get there. I feel very good that they could get there. And once they're there, it's all bets are off. I would like putting a little bit of money on Baylor. I I would like putting a little money on Texas Tech at plus 600. I don't know past that. If you told me that Cincinnati made the Big 12 title game, I mean, I would be shocked given our opinions on Satterfield. But, you know, we were wrong about Brendan Sorsby. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I got nothing on where to go in the championship market. I truly
Love
don't.
it.
I have
Love it.
no idea. No idea. I feel a little bit stronger, still doing work, still researching, still looking at rosters. Haven't pulled the trigger on anything yet. I do feel a little bit stronger when you shift into that win totals market.
So let's do that.
And yeah, you know, the interesting thing at the top of the Big 12 is they've listed about 3 teams, and you named them: Texas Tech, Kansas State, Arizona State, all at 8.5. The numbers are from BetMGM here, but these are available at most of your outs at this point. All 3 of them are at 8.5, and I believe all 3 last I saw were plus money if you liked the over. And I thought that was interesting because it's essentially saying, I guess it's kind of saying in a different way, hey, we don't know. Like, we don't know what's going on with this conference.
Right.
So maybe somebody's got to win 9 games, so we guess 8.5, but
And someone
You
always
really
does. But and that's the thing. Somebody always does. Someone's going to win 10 games in this conference. Like someone's going to win. There's probably going to be a team with 11 wins in this conference. Like that's going to happen. Like just it is.
Yeah.
And so, like when everyone's you got 3 at 8.5, and then you have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at 7.5. Like
they're telling you they don't know.
They don't know.
That's what those numbers mean.
That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is half the conference at 7.5 or 8.5. Pick your 4 favorite and put money on the over, because I can promise you 4 of those 8 are going to finish with more wins than 7.5 or 8.5. Like they just are. Now it's a crapshoot as to which ones, but again, Baylor's at 7.5. I will put money on Baylor's the one at this point. I'm like, the odds are not there on Baylor. And I feel like that is, to me, based off my expectations for this season, my favorite bet of Baylor in the Big 12 champion, Baylor to win, and Baylor plus over 7.5 wins. Like I think they figured a lot out. But this is it's not even a conversation.
And Sawyer's good. Sawyer's really good.
So they finally figured out who their best quarterback on their roster was.
Yes.
And that is massive. Now, if the defense can take a step forward, they've got a lot of issues to figure out in the secondary. But like I like Baylor over a lot. Like I that one seems too low to me. I would love BYU plus 7.5 if we weren't concerned about Jake Retzlaff, because with Jake Retzlaff, that's a better than 8-win team. Without him, I'm not touching it. Not going anywhere near that. Outside of that, why is UCF at 6.5? Give me the under.
Why is Cincinnati at 6.5 is my question. Because that is, I mean, except for maybe Arizona, that looks to me like the deadest team in this conference in terms of like where the roster's at, what the coaching is, what the schedule is.
It's not the roster to me. I don't really have a problem with the roster that much. I like Brendan Sorsby. I think they've got good pieces. They've got nice pieces on defense. Like that is a roster that should have gone to a bowl game last year. That's a roster that should go to a bowl game this year. I don't trust the coaching. I don't trust Scott Satterfield. I don't think they can coach those guys to finish games and win close games and pull it off. I think the talent's fine. I'm fine with them at 6.5 because I think somewhere around there is probably right. Like maybe they finish at 5 again. UCF with Scott Frost and a roster that I don't understand, with no identity back in year one in UCF, and you have them at 6.5. That if that team wins 6 games in year one for Scott Frost, bravo.
I thought you were going to get Cincinnati at 5.5 and probably juice to the under there. So to see them at 6.5 with bigger juice to the under, but we're talking 155. I'm going to talk about a team here in a second that's minus 210. So 155 in the win totals market is not like the end of the world. I think that's an under for me. I'll go back to Arizona State for a second.
Yeah.
8.5 plus 110, as I've said, you're basically saying, okay, but you can't do it again. I mean, that's essentially what that number is like, hey, you're Arizona State. You had a nice season. Scadaboo's gone, and we don't think you can do it again. And I think they can. I think, they didn't lose a ton. They have some nice transfer pieces coming in. I think, I'm not telling you they're going to win the Big 12 again. I'm not telling you they're going to go to the playoff again.
No.
Can they go 9-3? I think they can. I think they can go to Mississippi State and win. Yes. I think they're not, the rest of their non-conference doesn't scare me. I think they can go 500 in Big 12 play, or probably better, and be a 9-3 team. So I think 8.5 plus 110 at this point in the offseason, with still a lot of work left to do, I think that looks like one of the better bets on the board to me. And it's predicated on this very like lazy idea of, I mean, I talk about regression a lot, so I don't want to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but there is statistical regression that's sensible, and there is then sort of a reflexive regression that's like, hey, that team overachieved, so they're going to underachieve next year. Like that, and it's more complicated than that. It doesn't automatically trigger back. So I think, like, yeah, Arizona State 9-3 plus money, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, they were a year ahead of schedule last year, and you bring back your quarterback, you bring back your best wide receiver, who's probably going to be first team All Big 12. You bring back really important pieces on defense. Like, let's not pretend like losing Cam Scadaboo is just like, oh, we'll replace him. And I like the transfer from Army, but I don't see this team and go, yeah, they're gonna be 3 or 4 games worse than last year.
Offensive line's still going to be good.
Like, I see no reason that this team, like, again, I'm not going to pick them to go to Arlington. I'm not going to pick it to win again. But I'm going to pick them to go to 8 wins instead of 9. No. Like, I don't see that. I don't see that this year. And again, the schedule isn't, like, you have to go to Baylor, who I think is going to be good. You have Texas Tech, who I think is going to be good. After that, TCU, who the hell knows? At Utah, who the hell knows? Houston should be better. At Iowa State, lost a ton. West Virginia, we've talked about them a bit. At Colorado, Arizona, like, yeah. I think 9 wins is a reasonable expectation for an Arizona State team. That if we really think this is a program that he's moving in the right direction, should be able to follow up last year with a 9-win season.
Yeah, and one of the things, if you want to be like a really good college football win total better, one of the things you need to understand is that this is not baseball where the win totals, like, there's a high level of variance, dozens and dozens of games between different teams' win totals. A majority of college football win totals are between 5.5 and 7.5, right? And one win is a big jump. Mm-hmm. So where you make money, like where your profit margin is in terms of which bets you're going to select, a lot of times it comes down to the VIG. It comes down to, well, are you paying minus 130 for a price, or are you getting plus money on a bet that you like? So if you told me Arizona State over 8.5 minus 125, okay, I might have an inclination toward the over as a matter of opinion, but in terms of betting, I don't know if that's a bet. But you're giving me 35 cents better than minus 25. You're giving me plus money on the return at plus 110. Now that's a very interesting. So, like, there's that element of it too. It's much more so in the financial realm of the handicapping. Mm-hmm. When you find a good bet and you're getting that plus money, that's where it becomes a stronger position, specifically in college football win totals. That's what you want to be hunting for. So
which ones do you like so far as we sit here recording this on May 28th?
Yeah, I told myself I wanted to do the show with you today and give 3 Big 12, 3 non-Big 12, and then 1 bonus at the end. Okay. So the 3 Big 12 I have written down here is I've already worked into it for you. Is the Cincinnati under 6.5? I just think that number should be 5.5. And then Arizona State over plus 110. The third one that I like is Houston. Now, the Houston angle, it's going to matter where you bet it because there's actually a pretty wide variance of where you can find this in the marketplace right now. At BetMGM, we have, and I don't know why the traders do this. Like, I don't text people like, hey, so we have this number. What, you can tell me what's going on there. I have no idea. I am merely a blogger. But we have Houston at 5.5 with a giant vig of minus 210. You can go to other places and find Houston at 6.5, where the over is a plus number. You're getting plus 120 or plus 115 to bet over 6.5. So you really have here a great opportunity to decide, well, do I want to be more conservative and take a smaller return with a number like what BetMGM has, or do I want to be more aggressive and go for the plus money play, but I have to give up a full win? They need to go 7-5 instead of 6-6. You're basically betting an alt at that point. It's functionally kind of what it turns into. I like the aggressive play with Houston. I think they can go 7-5. I think they I think they overachieved under Willie Fritz in year one with him based on the talent they had on the roster. I think they're going to take another step forward this year. I think the schedule sets up very well for them starting very early on to win some games. And I think they can go 7-5 and cash this plus 120 number.
Yeah. I don't hate that. Now, I'm a more conservative person, would probably take the less return on over Houston 5.5 because that just feels like easy money, which is why that number is that way. But I can see a 7-5. Like, it really, Fritz is a guy who develops his rosters well. Like, I don't expect them to make the year 2 jump that we just saw from Arizona State, but I don't like that team should go bowling this year. It should. So we'll keep an eye on it. It's good. I like that one. I like that. Again, my favorite would still be over 7.5 for Baylor. What's the plus minus on the over there?
Let me look. I know I have a tab here, but I have a million tabs open on my computer.
Hold on, I had it.
Sick podcasting audio right here.
I think I can actually get it on my phone. Here we go. Okay.
Over plus 110, under 7.5, minus 135.
Oh,
as
plus 110?
we are recording today.
Oh, perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, give me Baylor over 7.5 at plus 110. I will. I'll take that all day. All day.
Yeah. Without having their schedule immediately in front of me, if I was going to add a fourth to this, it would probably be Baylor over. Yeah.
I mean, this is a team that won like their last 6 games in a row last year.
Yeah.
Let's see. I can pull up their schedule right here. Easy as can be. Here we go. Obviously, they open with Auburn in Waco. With Auburn, big game. Then SMU. So you've got 2, I'm going to use air quotes for Power 5 teams to start your non-con. Stanford. Arizona State at home. Stillwater for Oklahoma State. Home for Kansas State. TCU on the road. Cincinnati. So they don't leave. They go to Oklahoma. That's the furthest away from home they go as far as like outside of the state until they go to Cincinnati in October. And then it's home for UCF, home for Utah, at Arizona, home for Houston. Like the schedule is fantastic to me. TCU on the road, Cincinnati on the road, UCF at home, Utah at home, Arizona on the road, Houston at home. Like, yeah, Yeah. And get that number now because if they beat Auburn in week 1, like that number is going to go.
Yeah, the risk with Baylor is it's high variance, right? Because you could also tell me that they're 1-5 after the Oklahoma State game, and I wouldn't be shocked, right? SMU played in the conference title game last year. Auburn is the market sees them as 22-1. They win the SEC. Obviously, that doesn't make them a favorite, but it's way better than I would have guessed. So, not sure what's going on there. Maybe they think Hugh Freeze is going to have a good year.
Speaking of guys whose systems are outdated and no longer cutting edge.
September 20th, you're playing the reigning conference champion, Arizona State. It's in Waco, but you're still playing the conference champion. And then at Oklahoma State, never an easy place to play. So they could be. You could be on easy street en route to the bank to cash that over 7.5 after the Oklahoma State game, or you could be dead in the water, and it could be anywhere in between. And that's why I think Baylor is not on necessarily my short list, is that I like the ceiling play with them. I would skew them toward my ceiling in a projection, but I think it's higher variance in the win total market because of the what the non-conference is and how they could turn out. Weirdly, I think that's a team where I prefer the conference championship play at 8-1, probably to the win total play.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, let's run through the last four you've got for us: 3 non-Big 12, and then a bonus as well from hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Sunbelt Chase.
Sunbelt Chase. Here we go. Alabama under 9.5. I just think, I think there's still a little sparkle left in some people's eyes when they're thinking about that Alabama. I like Kalen DeBoer. Okay, I thought it was a great hire. I think he's going to do a good job. But the days of Alabama automatically going 10-2 or 11-1 are over, and I don't think they're coming back. So this is a schedule where Alabama opens the season with a true road game at Florida State. I don't think Florida State's going to be a hot garbage fire all season yet again. So could Alabama win that game? Maybe. But they could also lose that game. I think it's probably closer to a toss-up than a lot of people are imagining. They got to go to Georgia. They got to go to South Carolina. Those 3 games, I think they're losing 2 of them. I think they're going to lose to Georgia, and I think they're going to lose to South Carolina. So you're then telling me they've got to basically run the table on the entire rest of the schedule. I don't think they're going to do that. I just think this is a 9-3 team. So I like the underplay there, and I would not be surprised if it was worse than 9-3. If it's 8-4 and they miss the playoffs. I mean, there's 3 losses on that schedule.
Yeah. Do we not remember what happened against a terrible Oklahoma team last year?
Or Vanderbilt.
It was a good Vanderbilt
Tennessee.
team, but Vanderbilt's on the schedule again.
They got a home game against Tennessee. I think Vols are live in that one. So I just, there's 3 losses on that schedule. You're getting a pretty decent price at -105. I like it. That's one. Okay. Let's go to some weirder places for these other 2. Utah State.
Yes.
Logan, Utah. The number is 4.5. Utah State hired Bronco Mendenhall, who used to be at UVA, so that is my exposure to him. Is all of the UVA people in my life love Bronco Mendenhall. He's a really good coach. He was chased out of Charlottesville because of some, let's say, disagreements with the athletic department staff. He did such a good job at New Mexico last year. He wanted to take some years off, which might be just code for I'm getting out of Virginia and I need a little reset here. He went to New Mexico. New Mexico was god-awful last year going into the season. No roster talent whatsoever. He made them, I guess I would describe it as a tough out. They were not an easy team to just dispatch nonsensically last year. He made them good.
Not all 5 and 7 seasons are built equally.
It's that kind of thing, yes.
New Mexico going 5 and 7 and being competitive in as many games as they were is
truly one of the unheralded great coaching jobs of 2024 that no one will talk about. And it's because Mendenhall's a really good coach and he has the goods. So it's also somebody I was kind of hoping West Virginia would take a look at. So going to Utah State, over 4.5, I think the schedule is, there's 5 wins on that schedule. I'll put it that way. The bottom of the Mountain West is pretty easy. Plus 110, again, it goes back to the VIG. You want to hunt for strong VIGs that are going to give you good return. I'm not against paying heavy juice, obviously, with like the Cincinnati play, but like you want to look for some places where you're going to pad your return. And this is one of the places where the buy point is absolutely right. So Utah State over 4.5. The last one I have here in the 3 non-Big 12 pre-special category This is crazy. I seriously cannot believe I found this. I cannot remember a time I have ever seen this. The Akron Zips. If you want to pull up the Akron Zips schedule, okay?
I do. I'm pulling it up right now.
You can check behind me.
Okay.
They do not have a bye week. The Akron Zips do not have a bye week. Now, they have an on-paper bye week, which is at the end of October going into November. But it's one of those scenarios where, you know, the MAC teams play a lot of Tuesday nights. And so their quote-unquote bye week is where they play on a Saturday, and then they don't play the next Saturday, but they are playing the following Tuesday, right after that Saturday where they would play. So normally you've got 7 days in between games. They have like 9 days in between games, which is really not that functionally different than having 7 days. They don't have a bye week. It's bizarre.
Okay, I see how it happened.
Right. It's because their season is over on November 18th.
Right. It's and because okay, so you had the Saturday the 25th of October, then you go all the way until 9 days on a Tuesday, and then you play a Tuesday game, and then you play a Tuesday game,
and that Saturday was their bye week,
right?
But it's not. It's basically a week later. You haven't had a bye if you're playing on Tuesday when you normally would have played on Saturday. That's not a bye.
Wow.
So they effectively are and then they're, you know, this is one of those years of college football where the schedule's kind of funky. So everybody has 2 bye weeks,
but they have 0.
They essentially have 0 because one of their bye weeks is that funky 9-day period, and the other one is they're off the last week of the regular season. So who cares about that?
How did that happen?
They're playing a season where they don't have a bye.
How do they not have a game the last week of the regular season?
So, what is the crazy dirt low win total they should have because they're a disadvantaged program to begin with, and now they're going to play without a bye? It's 4.5. Last year they went 4-8. So, the win total market wants to know, do you think Akron is going to have a better season this year with effectively no bye week? It's crazy. I can't believe this. And it's Akron, and we're currently recording this in May. It's the end of May, but still May. Nobody's talking about this. I mean, nobody has found this. This is just I'm in my basement looking at stuff, and like I can't believe I found this.
Go straight to my book and hit the Akron under.
It's under 4.5 is minus 135. I believe is the number I saw. So, yeah, that's one that I found.
Okay. I'm playing my Akron football record by year. One of my favorite things to pull. Like, last year they won 4 games. The first time they won that many games since 2018.
Yes.
They had a nice stretch there under Terry Bowden where they weren't terrible.
You know, to talk about market dynamics here for a second, if you told me you priced this at Akron 3.5, that to me would feel like a fair price.
Right.
Because you're asking, hey, can this program that is maybe moving this thing in a slightly positive direction, the MAC has a pretty awful bottom to it. Kent State's going to be a tire fire this year because of the Kenny Burns stuff. Can they hold water with no bye week? Can they go 4-8 again? That would be, to me, a fair market. That would be probably no buy point here because I don't want to get involved with an Akron team. Who knows? Maybe the bottom's going to fall out again. Maybe they are moving in the right direction. High variance conference like the MAC. I don't want to get involved. But if you're going to price it at 4.5, where they now essentially have to improve for the over to hit on a year-on-year basis, that's an obvious under. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, look, their schedule is, but they're bad too. It's like you look at the schedule like, oh, so you should be able to beat this. Then you realize, oh, I'm looking at Akron's schedule. So it's not like I can act like they're going to be superior to any of these bad teams in there. Okay.
They have 2, maybe even 3 games there where, like, you should win those games. You should beat Kent State if you're Akron.
Duquesne.
You should beat
State,
Duquesne.
And, oh, man, I really want to.
But
Probably
4.5. And you're Akron. 4.5 is a big
UMass
number.
this year? UMass?
I think UMass is better.
But here's the other problem. You say they should beat Kent State. Kent State's their second to last game. So it's
Correct.
not even like they get Kent State early when Kent State
To build a little positive momentum, right?
It's when you are just trying to get to the end of the season, and now you got to play Kent State, who
And Kent State, like, from their angle, I mean, they're going to be so bad this year because of just all the stuff that's going on there. But by the end of the year, they're a year older, you know? Excuse me.
That's wild.
Crazy find. Truly a crazy find.
All right. You got one more, Sun Belt.
I do. If you are a betting person, I'm not going to try to pressure anybody to bet that isn't in a betting, okay? If you don't like betting, you don't have to bet, right? I'm not here to tell anybody to do anything they don't want to do. If you are a betting person, you need to stop what you were doing. You need to pause this podcast as soon as I'm done talking. And you need to go bet every Southern Miss position you can possibly find. Okay? This is officially Sun Belt Chase talking. Southern Miss was so bad under Will Hall. It was one of the worst G5 programs for the last few years. So bad. In a story that will not get any recognition or attention nationally, despite the fact that it's incredibly weird, Southern Miss fired its coach. In the Sun Belt East, Southern Miss is a Western Division team. Okay, in the Eastern Division, Marshall won the conference, but for some reason didn't want to pay head coach Charles Huff, who's approaching the end of his. He
was unhappy with the decision makers, and the decision makers were unhappy with him no matter how much you win. In fact, them winning the conference title was like the worst thing that could happen to the decision makers at Marshall.
He also, it's not just that he won the conference, he also beat Notre Dame like 2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So good coach. And it turns out he wasn't really looking for that much extra money because Southern Miss signed him to a new contract, and they really only gave him like a $200,000 raise. I mean,
this wasn't about money once it was leaving Marshall.
True. So Charles Huff goes from Marshall to Southern Miss. Same conference. That doesn't happen very often. He takes, like, I want to say 18 starters with him from Marshall. Weird. Just total brain drain out of Huntington down to Southern Miss. They bring in some nice transfer pieces on top of the Marshall stuff. They grab a couple of FCS players that are really good that I thought, whoa, those are some smart signings. Nice transfer portal work there. The schedule is interesting. I don't think traditionally the West and the Sun Belt is not as deep of a division as the East is. The East, they really beat up on each other. The West, the top 2 or 3 teams can often be very good and capable of winning the conference, but the bottom is kind of dreadful. Southern Miss over 4.5 at minus 130 is such a cheap buy point. This should be like, not even should. I'm going to make a prediction. By the time we get to week 0, this number is going to be 5.5 or 6.5. When people really start talking about college football futures, this is going to be a bet you hear about all the time. It's going to be on everybody's list, and right now it's 4.5 at minus 130. So that's number 1. You got to go bet that. Okay. Number 2. Bet them to win the conference at 25-1. I mean, we're talking about they just took the team that won the conference, and basically everybody that started for that team that didn't graduate transferred with the coach to Southern Miss. So you have, I mean, like, take the jerseys off. The defending conference champions are Southern Miss. And then they added good pieces on defense from top FCS programs. They added, like, guys that were All-Americans or just missed All-American status. They added to that. And they're 25-1 to win the conference. Crazy. Bet number 3. Southern Miss is a 14.5-point underdog in week 1 at Mississippi State. It's still an SEC school. they're not going to suck at some point, right? Mississippi State can't be this bad forever. But you're giving me the little brother team that knows it's good because it just won a conference championship at a different school 9 months ago. You're giving me the little brother team taking a shot at the chin of big brother when he's down, when he's very, very vulnerable, and you're giving me 14 points and the hook. I don't know, man. That's a lot of points.
I love it. I do. I will be re-downloading my Bet Saracen app and see what I can come up with here.
When I texted you, I had notes from Sunbelt Chase. Did you think it was about JMU?
No, that seemed too obvious. I wasn't sure what it was, but as soon as you started talking, and just this other mess, I knew exactly what was going on.
Oh my god!
I've enjoyed that story as a Split Zone Duo subscriber of like the insanity of what Marshall has done to itself. Of like, you know what we don't like? When our head coach is successful and doesn't just kowtow to what we want to do and says things, and it's just like,
And that's really where we should end this episode. I think there's a nice symmetry between starting and ending this episode by describing Division I West Virginia-based football programs that don't know what the hell they're doing in terms of signing and keeping a head coach. It's the zombie apocalypse out here in the Mountain State.
Y'all, can we just get West Virginia and Marshall to schedule each other? Just do it. I don't want to hear West Virginia fans get all.
The Marshall people are definitely on board with you. It's the West Virginia side of it that doesn't want to.
The lack of in-state stuff. It's the same thing in Arkansas. Like Arkansas is finally playing Arkansas State in football for the first time this year, and those two programs have both existed for 100 years. Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
this in-state, the lack of in-state teams not playing each other, just dumb.
Historically, I am pro West Virginia and Marshall playing each other. I do think as we have moved into a more crowded scheduling space where you really have to be thoughtful about which rivals you want to play because you've only got so many open weeks for that. I want to play Pitt and I want to play Virginia Tech. I care about those games a lot more than I care about Marshall.
And that's fine, but you also should be playing two out-of-conference P5s all the time until you're actually able to justify beating both. I just like rotate Penn State and Virginia Tech and play Marshall and play an FCS school. And because also with West Virginia, like, you know what would be nice? To not spend so much on travel. And I bet you Marshall will be cheaper to schedule than some of the other
I'm sure it would.
G5 ones they schedule, and just do it. It's like
I would be in favor of
it's essentially if they play at Marshall, it's another game West Virginia fans can get to easily.
Whatever that fourth game is, I mean, yeah, but one of the problems with that is, it's already an expensive ticket in Morgantown with a stadium that seats, 62,000 or whatever. You start trying to sell out the Marshall Stadium and Huntington with all those people. I mean, those tickets are going to be crazy. So fair enough. I think there's an economic issue there that is probably boring to 99% of people. I would use the fourth game that's nominally against a G5 opponent. That would be a recruiting game for me. That's where do we let's go play ODU because we want to recruit Virginia Beach. Let's go play you're already in Pittsburgh, so let's go play a MAC team because we want to recruit Ohio. Let's go play
because you know what gets recruits to want to come to West Virginia? You slobber knocking Miami of Ohio, because that's just going to get everyone's attention.
Yeah, but I mean, attention.
I get it.
Attention is currency, right? If you're in front of people, and
that would make a whole lot more sense if they were scheduling games next year or 2 years out, and not 10 years out.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point.
That makes a ton of sense, because that's how scheduling should be done, is in those schedules. But when you have to schedule games 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years away, that doesn't work, because you could be on a third different head coach by the time that game actually gets played that you scheduled while Rich Rod was in charge.
You could be on your third go around with Rich Rod, not just third head coach. You could be on your third different time with Rich Rod.
He'll just be
By the time we play Youngstown State in Youngstown
as part
in
of
2035.
In the same conference. It's a conference.
Yeah, same pyramid. Conferences are so 2020s.
Yeah,
conference pyramid.
Chase, as always, it's a pleasure. I look forward to having you on again each week during the fall, and we will have you on again before the season gets started. But for everybody who wants to check out the great work you do covering betting, college, and all of the other sports involved, where can they do so?
Oh, geez. I don't even remember how to do this. How do you even self promo? It's been so long. At Chase A. Kiddy on Twitter and whatever other social medias I may or may not have. I don't even remember at this point. For now I'm at the BetMGM blog, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'm in demand. Maybe somebody's trying to hire me. I don't know. So, but for now,
wherever you are,
BetMGM
just tell
blog.
the bosses we got room for a sponsor. So
yeah. Yeah, I'll pass that on. Sounds like Pet Saracen's getting free advertising on this.
It's the only one I can get
podcast,
here in Arkansas. So yeah. All right. Chase,
I don't know that they're trying. From what I've heard, they're trying down there.
Always trying. Whoop. All right, man. Hey, it's been a pleasure, and we'll talk to you again soon.
See ya.